Hello, this is Mr. Chabry, and we are here with another narrated Pokemon battle. So this is going to be an OU match against Jose G15, and the Pokemon I really want to try out here is actually going to be the Alolan Golem. I've seen people use Alolan Golem in OU as basically like a steel type counter, trap some things in, you can earthquake them, use that electric typing and hit it really hard. So I'm going to try it out. I've never really used Alolan Golem, and I want to actually see how well I can use it. I'm going to lead off with Zapdos, mainly so I can Volt Switch, as my opponent's going to lead off with this Hoopa. And honestly, Hoopa is a huge threat to me. This thing is a very powerful Pokemon, especially if it's Choice Banded. And I'm going to go into my defensive Mon. However, you're going to see this thing just cuts right through it like butter. So it's going to hit us with that Hyperspace Fury. There's not much I can do about that here. I'm actually going to protect. The thing is, I've not played around Hoopa enough to know that its signature move bypasses protect. So either way, Ferrothorn would have went down anyway, and I don't have a switch into this thing, really. So either way, I would have to let Ferrothorn go down. So unfortunately, Ferrothorn didn't really do much, but in the long run, I don't even think it would be able to do much anyway. But yeah, I didn't really have a switch in either, and this thing is like just punching through my defensive wall. So now I'm going to go into my Mega Caesar. It's something that can, pretty much one-shot Hoopa. Hoopa's very weak to Bug. So, of course, I'm going to have my Caesar here. My opponent's going to bring in his own Zapdos. That's a pretty good counter against my my Caesar here. I'm just going to go ahead and U-turn. We see the Rocky helmet on this thing, actually. So that's actually pretty cool. We're going to go ahead and go into our own Zapdos. My Zapdos is Choice Specs, so it's a more offensive Zapdos, whereas his seems to be more of a defensive Zapdos. So now my opponent's going to actually swap into the Tapu Koko and, set up the Electric Surge. Unfortunately, I actually went Hidden Power Ice. I feel like maybe a Thunderbolt would have done more damage to this thing, but I don't know. It's something that you'd have to actually calc to make sure. I'm going to get hit with a Thunderbolt, and that's actually going to do quite a bit of damage. I'm going to go for another one just to mainly chip it down a little bit more. And honestly, I don't have a good switch-in, really. Ferrothorn would have been my best switch-in, really, and it's already gone. So I'm going to have to sack off Zapdos here just so I can have a switch-in to something else. And that's actually really bad. I've already lost two pretty important Pokemon. So now my opponent's going to bring in that Zapdos once again. I'm just going to Bullet Punch. Like I already said, Zapdos hard counters my Caesar, and I can't really do anything to it with my Caesar, so I have to switch out. Right now I'm playing hard defense right now. I'm still trying to come back from these losses from earlier on in the game. So now I'm going to go into my Heatran, and we're going to take a Discharge right now. Luckily, we don't get paralyzed from that, and that's actually what I was worried about. So now my opponent's going to go ahead and switch out that Zapdos and bring in the Hoopa. Honestly, Hoopa does have really good special defense, and even with that, I'm hoping maybe we can do enough damage that the Magma Storm, residual damage will do enough, but looking at that, it will not be enough to take out this Hoopa. So really, this Hoopa is a huge threat, and I don't really have a good switch in. Luckily, though, we're going to outspeed it, so we're going to, just take it out. And honestly, I was kind of worried of this thing having Drain Punch, because if it hit Heatran with a Drain Punch, it would have all that health back. But even with that Hoopa going down, we're still playing defense right now. And, we need to try to turn some of this around, get rid of some of these threatening Pokemon. Now the Tapu Koko is here, I'm going to go ahead and switch into Toxapex mainly as a pivot. Honestly, looking at my opponent's team, Toxapex seems to be doing the least. My opponent has, things that can actually take out Toxapex pretty easily. Luckily, Toxapex actually takes a Thunderbolt there, which actually surprised me, however. There's no point in keeping it alive. My opponent has, quite a few electric types, and Toxapex, honestly, needs to be sacked off so we can bring in something to threaten my opponent. We're going to go into Caesar here, my Mega Caesar. My opponent's going to go ahead and preserve that Tapu Koko there and go back into the Zapdos. Like I said, Zapdos is a hard counter. Here, I'm going to protect that, actually, and just go for a U-turn so I can bring in something to threaten my opponent's Zapdos. Of course, we're actually taking a lot of Rocky Helmet damage, so that's kind of unfortunate. Here, I'm going to go into Golem. Really, I don't have, like, a good, way of dealing with this Zapdos, and honestly, a Thunderbolt would probably do a lot to Golem because it's not the best in terms of, special defense. I'm going to actually Wild Charge here, and we're going to get that boost from the terrain, which is actually really great. However, I know that this thing is faster than Golem. Honestly, I don't know, like, if it's like, if there could be a speed tie since my Golem is Scarfed. But I don't want to risk it because I know Golem's very slow. So I'm going to actually go into Heatran, just to take the Iron Head. And now my opponent's going to go ahead and switch into this here Magearna. And Magearna is a Pokemon that if you're not careful, it could sweep you, like hard sweep you. Luckily though, I just go for Magma Storm. I'm thinking my opponent probably just decided to sack off the Magearna actually because, of course, this thing is still type, Magearna is still type. They're both weak to fire, so it makes sense to, sack it off. Here, my opponent's actually going to go for a Healing Wish, and okay, so that's kind of scary right there because it's going to actually heal up whatever is going to come back in, and it's going to actually be the Tapu Koko. So yeah, this thing's going to get all of that health back that I've been slowly chipping away on it. So unfortunately, it's going to just make this a little bit tougher for me because this thing is honestly a pretty big threat. So at this point, things are not looking good. I don't really have a good switch into this Tapu Koko, so I'm actually just going to sack off Heatran. However, Heatran survives with 1 HP. 1 HP survival, and that's actually huge because we're going to be able to pop our Z move here, and that's going to be the Groundium Z, the Tectonic Rage. So yeah, hopefully we can get rid of this Tapu Koko that's becoming a huge threat. It's, doing a lot of damage to us, and this thing is, we just need to get rid of it because it's standing here ready to sweep the rest of my team. However, it's going to be carrying that Shuka Berry, and that's actually going to let it survive that Groundium Z. So that Shuka Berry coming in really huge for my opponent there. So we're going to lose Heatran here. However, I do have Scizor, I do have Bullet Punch. The question is my opponent just going to make a pretty safe switch into the Zapdos? However, I'm just going to go ahead and just Bullet Punch, and we do take out the Tapu Koko. However, that Zapdos is still there, and Scizor's not going to touch it. But before my opponent even, brings in the Zapdos, my opponent still has this Hawlucha, and it's actually got the Electric Seed. So my opponent doesn't even need that Zapdos, because I'm looking at this thing, it's probably going to end up sweeping me on its own. So I'm going to try to Bullet Punch, get some chip on it. However, it's just going to go ahead and set up a Swords Dance. And honestly, at this point, I know it can easily Roost, because a lot of time they do carry Roost. It's just going to, set up with those Swords Dance. Really, the only thing I think that could help is maybe if I get a crit, but yeah, we're just going to go down to the Acrobatics. This thing's got, the Acrobatics boosted by not holding an item anymore. It's just got the Swords Dance, and yeah, Golem's not going to survive a high jump kick. The only way I have a chance at this is if it misses the high jump kick and I can hit it with a Wild Charge. However, my opponent's not going to miss that, and Golem is not going to be able to bring it back for the team. So good game, Jose G15. Unfortunately, Golem didn't really do as much as I had hoped, and I think a part of that is because of that really low speed stat. It's a very niche Pokemon. It only does one thing good, and I think that thing is actually, taking care of Magnezone. Of course, it can, do good against other Steel types, but I feel like you can probably find other things in OU that are better against Steel types. So if you like this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. I will see you in the next Pokemon video.